All right, now more to some domestic issues. One of the changes that the oil and gas landscape is experiencing at this time is the end of crude swap. According to the NNPCL, the National Petroleum Company Limited has said that it's winding down crude swap contracts with traders and will pay cash for petrol import. The GMD said that, adding that private companies could begin importing petrol as soon as this month, June. Well, the thing is, I don't think a lot of Nigerians actually understand, even before it comes to an end, this issue of crude swap. So we're going to delve into that just a little bit. Joining us from our Abuja studio for that conversation is Dr. Abubakar Alkali, a petroleum engineer and energy expert. Dr. Alkali, good morning. Thank you for your time this morning.
Good morning, Ini. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so a lot of Nigerians would now be knowing about the crude swap at this time when the NNPCL is saying it's ending. So help us to understand. I know I saw an article you wrote and you did some calculation, how it's capturing subsidy and all of that. Help us understand more about this crude swap.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much again. The crude swap, which is otherwise known as DSDP, that's direct sales, direct purchase agreement, is a kind of agreement between the NNPC and third parties, majorly oil marketers. They call them consortium of both indigenous and foreign marketers. So in that context, the NNPC allocates, a dedicated volume of, crude oil, okay, to this consortium and say, okay, bring or import equivalent volume of refined products. Basically, the contract actually contains basically the petrol, the kerosene, that's DPK, and gas oil. So bring any of this, but majorly it is the petrol that comes in. So they take this crude oil to, they could take it abroad to a refinery abroad, they get it refined, and they bring it to the NNPC. And it is supposed to be a direct swap arrangement where equivalent, volume of refined products is brought, in place of the crude oil. For example, if the NNPC allocates 1 million barrels of crude oil, it is expected that the importer, the marketer, will bring in 1 million liters equivalent of 1 million barrels of crude oil, in form of refined products. So also another thing to look at, in that article you mentioned, what I was trying to do was simply to look at the landing cost, which is the key thing, which was, what the subsidy was all about. What the subsidy is simply looking at the landing cost and the regulated price. And then the government pays the difference, between the landing cost and the regulated price. But that said, I think it is a good thing that the DSDP has gone, and you now have direct, importation, direct cash payments, okay? However, there is the need to carry out a forensic audit of the DSDP so as to, understand the situation and, make the process better. Now, within this context, you actually find out that there is an issue here because the government has removed subsidy. And in that context, government cannot regulate prices, okay? You cannot regulate price under a deregulated, sector. The downstream sector of the oil industry is more or less now deregulated. However, there is one thing which is very, very critical, and which is that there should be enforcement. Okay, NNPC has released a template of prices per liter between 488 naira in Lagos to 500 and about 37, 47 naira in Maiduguri and Damaturu. Now, within that context, you actually find out that it is very difficult to expect that the marketers will stick to this price. And you see, I'm saying this so that we don't run into a situation where a liter of petrol gets to 1,000 naira if adequate measures are not taken. And these measures are enforcement. Now, what the NNPC or the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority cannot fix prices, but they can enforce the laws. And this enforcement means they should ensure that, you see, public interest is protected. You cannot have a situation where a marketer imports fuel.
Dr. Akali, let me just jump in there, because it sounds contradictory when you say the NNPCL is now deregulated. So the NNPCL cannot fix prices, and yet we expect a government agency to regulate or ensure, that prices are being followed. How do we balance that? Because, when you say a market is deregulated, it means supply and demand, will interchange and determine what the price will be, which is why I believe the NNPCL has said that now you can have more people go into importing of petrol and determine the price.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, the fact is, what actually gave the NNPC or the Nigerian Midstream Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority, you see, the leverage, or if you will, the audacity to fix prices is because of subsidy. Is because there is an inbuilt subsidy. Government pays subsidy. So it can say, okay, since I'm paying subsidy, you have to sell at this price. And I give you an example. If, which I actually think I mentioned at the beginning, but I'll say it again. If an importer brings in under, the DSDP or whatever arrangement, if the importer brings in petrol at a landing cost of 445 naira, for example. Now, how the subsidy system works is the government will say, out of this 445, maybe including profit, I will pay 200 naira, or I will actually pay 245 naira. 245, that's 445 minus 245, which is 200. So I'm saying that you have to sell at 200, since I have given you the balance. Now, why the NNPC or the government or the NMDPRA cannot fix price now is because that difference is not paid. Okay, so it's left to the market forces, fundamental market forces of demand and supply to now determine. If you are not paying subsidy, then you cannot tell the marketer what to sell. Government has lost ground, and I think I wrote this, I included this in that article. Government has lost the ground to set prices, but as I said, what can be done is not to set price, okay? Because you cannot set price under a deregulated sector. This is deregulated now. Deregulation means it is now left for market forces to determine the price. Obviously, more competition, more supplies could potentially bring the system down. But also, you should remember that this is like a cartel, you see, so it's very difficult for that to happen. But you see, what I was saying basically is that we cannot, the NNPC or the regulator, the NMPDRA cannot fix price, but they can enforce the rule to ensure that public interest is, secured, okay, it's protected. Because if a marketer brings in a product at 450 naira, you see, that marketer cannot sell it at 1,000 naira. This could lead to exploitation. It's actually exploitation. So the regulator, the NMDPRA, and the NNPC, and other agencies, relevant stakeholders, relevant agencies of government, MDS, should actually ensure that the public is not exploited, okay, by this importation, by the importers, by the marketers. Because if you leave it without enforcement, a marketer will bring in a product at 400 naira landing cost and then push it to 1,000. And I tell you, we actually stand the risk of a liter of petrol jumping to 1,000 naira if enforcement is not, instituted.
All right,
there is need to enforce the law. And how do we do this? Now,
So
briefly.
Okay, briefly, go ahead, because I wanted to ask, but go ahead, just briefly, please.
Or briefly, the NNPC and the DPRA should establish landing cost, at the ports. On arrival, what is the landing cost? And including other components of the landing cost, what is the landing cost at the pump? Then should ensure that the ex-pump price is actually set in such a way that the public is not exploited by the marketers.
All right, so thankfully we have Dangote, and Dangote has promised that by end of July we're going to have supplies from that refinery. Obviously, that should be able to reduce the landing cost, and we expect that to feed into the pump price.
Absolutely. This is one component again. And I think, as far as I know, there is a contract that was signed between the NNPC and Dangote for the supply of 300,000 barrels per day of crude oil to Dangote. Now, if you now take that away from 600 and from 445, okay, Dangote's capacity is actually 650,000 barrels, you see, per day. The refinery, Dangote's refinery, can refine 650,000 barrels per day, which is way above the daily consumption. The daily consumption in Nigeria is estimated, actually, to be 65 million liters of petrol. So now that 65 million liters is actually 445,000 barrels, because 1 barrel of crude oil actually has 170 liters of refined products. Now, if you multiply these 300,000 barrels that will be supplied to Dangote, you actually have about 37,000 liters of petrol, okay? And that is about half, you see? So out of this 170 of refined products, actually 73% is PMS, that's petrol, and the rest are kerosene, gas oil, and the rest of the byproducts. So the point I'm trying to make here is that, you see, the agreement between NNPC and Dangote can actually supply, when Dangote starts bringing out the product, can actually, supply about half of Nigeria's daily consumption requirement of petrol. Okay? So in a way, that could mean that the NNPC can actually call the shots. So that is, if this refined product, which is about 37 million liters of petrol, if it is under the arrangement that the whole 300,000 liters, 300,000 barrels or 37 million liters will be given to NNPC, it means NNPC can still call the shots. It can still dictate the price, okay? Ensure that the half of the 65 million liters can now be sourced from importers, from the marketers. That is, in a nutshell, half of the 65 million liters daily consumption of petrol can be sourced from Dangote. Under this arrangement to supply 300,000 barrels of crude oil to Dangote, NNPC to supply 300,000 barrels of crude oil to Dangote. Now, half of the daily consumption requirement is taken care of. What is required is to source the other half. So if you have this half consumption, already in the kitty, okay, it means you can dictate the price. So it means NNPC can still dictate the price and ensure that the price of petrol is, brought down as much as possible. Even the landing cost now, as you rightly stated, the lending cost, okay, will now go down, obviously, because the lending cost from Dangote will be lower than if you are importing it, because that's not importation.
All right.
That's production. That's local production.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Abubakar Alkali, petroleum engineer and energy expert, for breaking that down for us, especially the issue with the deal swap, which is coming to an end, according to the NNPCL. So, I mean, this just makes us look forward more to the production or supply from Dangote refinery, which we hope will start before the end of July. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you very much for having me, Ini.